Okay, well, we're rolling. Jess, thanks for
Perfect.
being here.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me.
What is Firebreak Management?
Firebreak Management is a forestry company um, with an emphasis on wildfire mitigation and teaching the homeowners where we live, kind of like concept and space, and how we can do some work to make our forest healthier and buy time for our wildland firefighters.
Yeah, this is a good time of year to be having this conversation and people to be thinking about this. How did you get into this work?
Um, so kind of the short condensed version is I got into the forest in 2012 through the Conservation Corps, and from there I worked in wildland fire for the U.S. Forest Service until 2019, and then from there decided to take a season off, which turned into a basically a short retirement. And the Bridger Foothills fire happened in 2020, and that kind of pulled me back into that world where I was devastated that we just didn't know what we didn't know when that fire happened. And I didn't feel like we could have prevented that fire or maybe prevented that amount of tragedy, but we could have bought a lot of time and potentially helped a lot of those structures be standalone structures. And so that's where the idea really spurred like, hey, let's keep doing what I've been doing in the field for years, only on the private front, and try to educate homeowners on the opportunities they have to be proactive instead of reactive.
So, being a wildland firefighter, you were always kind of an after the case, after the fire has started and spread, and you're trying to get out ahead of this.
Yeah, so our role as wildland firefighters is to come in once the fire has started or been established and do what we can to protect forest, home, lives, property, whatever it may be. And now our role is entirely focused on before the fire starts, working with private homeowners or HOAs and private spaces, trying to just educate them about their opportunity to be proactive and the steps they can take to either DIY, hire us or another company, and be a little bit more proactive and aware to mitigate that risk.
Are you working with, large landowners or homeowners, both? Either is there one you work with more than the other?
Yeah. Yeah, we're currently in year 5 and we've kind of we started just with what I call the home ignition zone. That's just, the 5, the 30, the 100, and maybe sometimes up to 200 feet. And that's where we started, kind of small roots, small beginnings. And now, yep, year 5, we're working at the HOA scale with, we're still doing that home ignition zone for people. It's really important. But for most of our clients now, we're spreading out into their properties 2, 5, 10, 20 acres and getting much more into that ecological forestry, multi-hundred acres, large scale. Good forestry is really the tip of the iceberg for wildland fire mitigation.
So let's just start with, let's say, a single family or maybe multifamily home, because that's what a lot more people will have. What can you do if you're a homeowner and you're in a potential threatened area, and how do you determine if you're in a threatened area?
Yeah, so one way you can determine you're in a potential threat area is there's different websites you can go onto for USGS and type in your address, and that mapping system can help show you exactly where, through the models, not exactly, but through modeling, what range of effect your home would be. For really all of Bozeman, if you think about it, not to shed the gloom and doom tactic, but really Bozeman's about 4.5 miles by 4.5 miles wide in our valley, and that entirely encapsulates the wildland urban interface. So even if you're right downtown center of 19th, you are technically still in our WUI. Where that gets a little bit more, where we focus a little bit more is going to be those homes either on the edge of the town that moves into the forest or they're fully engulfed in the forest. And whether we're doing something or not, what homeowners can do before they ever call us or we even show up is there's some good steps they can take, and it's cleaning out the gutters. This time of year, I'm going to speak to specifically the summer. Removing your welcome mat, not a big deal in the winter, but in the summer, keeping your firewood at least 30 to 40 feet away from the home. Those sorts of things are really small, really minor things that homeowners can do, but are really, really impactful. Um, Not to go deep on stats, but just a quick one: 90% of homes burn down from ember wash, not from being overtaken by flame. That's how we get a WUI so large across Bozeman, is that ember wash. And we'll all remember from the Bridger fire, those were ripping winds, 90 miles an hour that did a 180. that's the kind of fire behavior we're looking to kind of help mitigate and bring awareness to around that we can all do something with.
Yeah, the wood stacked against the house. That's a
Mm.
good one because it. I feel like a lot of people do that because aesthetically, it just looks nice. Your wood is
Yeah.
stacked up next to your front door or on the side of your house.
Yeah, we tell a lot of people a quick shortcut on that is, hey, maybe a compromise. In the winter, let's bring it close because we don't want to trudge through the snow. But in the summer, we're probably not lighting that fire as much. Maybe we can put it further out. We've talked a lot of people into steel containers where you can kind of store your firewood in that, or just welding blankets can be a really, really good stroke to just throw over your wood pile in the summer.
Yeah, I guess I never would have thought about that. What are you doing? I don't know if it's the most extreme, but what are you doing if you're going in and are you installing a type of sprinkler system? What does any of this look like?
Nope. So we don't install any of the sprinkler systems at this point. We're not yet part of the structure, tweaking anything on the structure side or water. What we do is we come in and we kind of treat that home ignition zone. So it starts with that first the home is ground zero, and that's a little bit out of our scope right now. We kind of pick up at that 0 to 5 feet, 5 to 30, 30 to 100, and 100 to 200. You'll hear those numbers a lot. That is the home ignition zone. It was actually created here in Missoula at the Fire Lab. So it's very, very pertinent to our region. Um, and what we're doing in those, ideally, we have no combustible materials in those first 0 to 5 feet. In an ideal world, I understand we talk to homeowners about landscaping and aesthetic value against their home, but that's the ideal world. You have rockscaping or hardscape. And then that next 5 to 30 feet, ideally you have some sort of like low cut native grasses or green lawn. And then you don't have a thicket of trees. You have either a couple of clumps or trees kind of randomly spaced out. And then finally, that 30 to 100 feet, we can have more trees, but again, they're spaced out. They're limbed up, which means in layman's term, we kind of give them a haircut to about 4 to 6 feet up. The idea is when we're building a campfire, we kind of start with stigs and twigs and small things, and we slowly get to the bigger wood. That's the same idea. We're not trying to keep fire out in our region. We're trying to keep the intensity down. So those are things we do. And then that 100 to 200 feet, again, just thinning and limbing, thinning, just making trees more spaced apart, giving them haircuts. And then if there is a lot of slope, that's when we push out to that 200 feet. Fire in our region loves to travel uphill.
Okay, so in some cases, are you doing some major land clearing and stuff depending on what's going on?
It can be, yeah, if it's pretty dense or if there's a ton of dead and down, it'll get into a pretty big project even in that close proximity.
And how about are you doing controlled burns at any point?
So, yes, we don't have the capacity at this point to handle in-house full broadcast burns. We've done, 1 to 12 acres, but we are typically doing and do a lot all spring and fall, a lot of pile burning. Hundreds of piles in the spring and fall.
What do you think homeowners don't know, or what are the biggest things you see? I guess second to what you've already mentioned with the welcome mat or the piles of wood is like what are some like things right off the top of the bat that you can just recommend people think about? Before we keep rolling with today's episodes, I want to tell you about someone who changed how we show up as a business. When clients land on our website, we hear the same thing over and over. It just feels right. Amy of Unbridled Form asked us questions we'd never thought to ask ourselves, helped us figure out the deeper identity underneath our services, and translated that into a brand world we're genuinely proud of. Our ongoing partnership is easily one of the best investments we've made. Learn more at unbridledform.com. Now back to the show.
I think we all don't know what we don't know. So one of those things is we hear a lot. People have the idea of wildland fire mitigation being like an all or nothing, like we need to clear cut everything or we don't. It's definitely not that. I want to soften the conversation around that. We don't believe that's good wildfire mitigation. But yeah, we've kind of, other than the things we've mentioned, a couple more that can get hit pretty easily by a homeowner without hiring anybody. If you feel safe and comfortable, is getting on a ladder and cleaning out not just the gutters, but the eaves as well. Things collect in the eaves. A little bit more intense, but still capable of doing is boxing in front porches. A lot of people have open front, like underneath your deck. Say it's like a low deck and a lot of like dead leaves and things blowing there. That's a great spot for embers to land as well. So doing fine mesh, screening that in, getting the leaves out, those are a big thing. And then eaves and vents around the house, those should be boxed in. Kind of same thing, metal meshing and not not giving those an entrance.
So anywhere essentially that these leaves are piling up, that's where an ember can catch it and
Yep, yep.
take off. How involved were you with those Bridger fires in 2020?
I actually was not. I was home on recovery days,
Okay.
and I watched it from our front yard. And my husband called me when he was working at FedEx. He's like, "Think that's gonna go big?" I was like, "Oh God, it's gonna go huge. It's mid slope." And
Yeah.
then I went to a fire and roundup 2 days later.
Oh wow. Yeah, I remember that. I literally remember the day, like seeing the smoke on the mountain, and it was just kind of crazy how quick it took off.
Yeah, it was not great. I came back. didn't do a full 14 on that roundup fire. I came home, and I also was working on the ambulance full time at that time to find out about this firefighter's hospitalized, and
Yeah.
that was a pretty rowdy fire.
Yeah. How about when you do you go in and work on bigger farms and ranches doing this kind of stuff too?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times that starts to look a little different. We'll do kind of the wildfire mitigation on those homes, and then a lot of times for ranches, we're just looking at reclamation land. Little known fact to people, we have more trees right now than we've ever had since we've started keeping records.
Hmm.
Our inventory is completely overstocked. There are way too many stems per acre right now to keep up with the rate we're currently building and occupying the land ourselves. If we treat us all like wildlife, including humans, we all need to carve out spaces here. And at the spaces we're carving, we are completely overstocked in inventory. So for ranches and farms, what that usually looks like is mastication or forestry mulching. We're going around and we're trying to eliminate hundreds, if not thousands, of new growth trees that are encroaching their farmland and taking water from our crops, our livestock, and kind of pushing them back out and giving them more sustainable ranch and farming land.
That's interesting that there's what do you say like trees per acre? What's the
Yeah,
term?
there's more stems per acre than we've ever recorded since we started keeping history of our trees.
Yeah, I guess people wouldn't think that.
You wouldn't think that, no. It's actually like, I think the stat, and I don't know if we cut this later, but it's something like with the amount of forestry companies registered, if everybody and their staff works full time for the next 10 years, we'll only get another, I think, 40% behind the problem.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like an astronomical thing right now at the rate we're growing.
And that has a I'd imagine that has a direct effect on these wildland fires.
Absolutely. It's not just the age old tale of the Forest Service getting really good at suppression, which I could go for way too long on that topic, but there is a lot of things that have gotten us to where we're at.
So if you're going to go in on a large ranch or a large piece of land, what are you going to do for preventative maintenance in that?
Typically, just looking at that mastication and going in, and it's just kind of mowing down the ranch essentially. A lot of times we see those introducing helpers being Doug fir in our area. They prop up everywhere. They can grow in extreme shade. They don't need a ton of water. And then juniper when we start changing the cycle out. And the idea is just getting all those mowed down. I wish I had the stats in front of me, but actually like we work with another contractor who actually produces water maps for these ranches. He actually does the calculation on them trees per acre per ranch for how many head of cattle you have or crops growing and kind of do that math. Like this is the amount of vegetation that needs to go to produce enough water to grow these crops or our cattle.
Yeah, that is interesting to think that an overpopulation of trees is stealing all your water, and
Yeah.
water is obviously a big issue out here in the West, or the
Yeah.
lack of water.
Yep.
Is there something that, ranchers can they make money if they have people come in and clear? I'd imagine there's a value to a lot of this lumber if they want to have certain sections cleared, and or is it an expense? How does that map out?
Yes and no. That's pretty complicated right now. We see that in the media a lot. We need to cut more mills. Unfortunately, Bozeman really only has one mill to speak of, and it's in Livingston. Um, from my understanding, and I probably shouldn't spread any rumors, but I just don't know how long standing that will be. The gentleman that owns it is quite a bit older, and there's not a planned successor. So when that mill shuts down, that's really going to change our industry. But really, with a lot of these things that are happening, unless we're doing large scale timber cuts, we're not seeing a lot of money coming out of these because of distance to the mill, because of the price of fuel and trucking costs and how much it costs to do this work now. It's weird how much this administration it's not weird. I mean, it follows suit, but the amount of cost of new logging equipment right now is through the roof and the return is not. this is not a wealthy industry. We're not getting rich doing this. So to answer your question, often no, there's not much of a log return. The return is, and it's why we have those water maps. The return is how much money is actually saved from water and feed for the cattle ranchers, typically in crops, and how much money they'll save from buying and bringing in feed, and the feed getting and staying sustainable on site. And more is that's the return than lumber. It just depends on the project, but that's a typical.
So it's really a cost savings, not a
Yeah.
not a big money maker.
Yeah, there is a lot of grants happening, and that can really help offset. You can get up to, 1,000 to a couple thousand per acre. Sometimes it's just a few hundred per acre. That can really, really offset, but it's not often we see the mill really able to offset that much. Usually only typically like a third of the cost, if anything.
And you were doing stuff for the Forest Service for a while.
Yep.
What was that career like?
That was a good time.
What did that entail?
It spanned everything from trail crew and rec and construction to district crews doing wildland fire and hot shot crews, and it was fun. It took most of my 20s. I checked my alma mater as the Forest Service.
Nice.
My whole 20s pretty much went there.
They just did. There was quite a bit of clearing that just happened in the last couple of years towards Fairy Lake, correct?
Yeah, I believe they've had quite a few projects up there on this ranger district lately.
Do you know if a project like that is that something to do with fire prevention? Is that just management of woodlands? Or are they both the same thing when that's happening?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. It almost always is the same thing. The Forest Service does a pretty good job at overlapping priorities as far as like I said right in the start, good wildfire mitigation is actually just great forestry.
Yeah. How about when you go in? Oh man, I don't remember the name of this trailhead, but if you go on South 19th before it gets to Cottonwood, there's a trail there where there's a lot of.
Is it sourdough?
No, not sourdough. But anyway, when you see all these big piles of brush and everything, what are the intentions there? What are they doing with that?
Usually they're coming back to burn them.
Okay.
Usually they get built and they're cured for a season. The NEPA process with the Forest Service is painfully, crucially long. Not that that shouldn't be. I don't know enough about it to speak to it, but it's a long, very long process.
Okay, and this in the same thing as management of the
Yep.
woodlands and
Yep.
fires.
Yep, trying to just reduce that fuel load again. Like we don't want to keep fire out here in the Northern Rockies. Our landscape is designed by fire. It thrives on fire. I mean, our lodgepole pines are serotinous, which means they really only produce seed and pop their cones under fire. So we need fire in this landscape, but trying to bring the intensity down, which is just like when you think of, again, back to that campfire, you add a little bit of wood, you have a small fire. You had a bunch, you have a bonfire. It's the exact same idea on wildland.
In that, the Bridger's fire was it lightning? Is that what they determined or they assume?
I believe,
Yeah.
don't quote me on this, that it's actually still undetermined the start, but it was thought to be either a lightning strike or someone smoking.
Yeah, I mean it's suspect because it's so close to a very popular trail.
Yes,
So
and where the lightning strike would have had to hit mid-slope is interesting.
yeah, is that like not as probable? I'm assuming
That is probable.
That makes sense. How about your career as a firefighter? What can you say to that? What was that experience like?
This is one of the best experiences of my life. I made sure I left before I was salty. A lot of people leave when they hate it. I left when it was just time for me to go. I just needed to be home more. Working on the Bitterroot shot crew, we work 1,000 hours of overtime roughly every season. And the Bitterroot being as far away from Bozeman as it was, I stayed in my car. The nights we were home, I lived out of my vehicle, so we were I was only home 8 nights this summer, my last couple years, and it just got really hard.
You said 1,000 hours of overtime. What's the season generally for that?
Bitterroot, usually we would start in mid-April and be laid off the start of October.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how many
6
hours of
months or
overtime
so.
you're doing, like per week or per day.
Oh, it's pretty wild. I think I figured it out. 1,000 hours of overtime with the amount of season we work is like 2 seasons built. It's like a full year into that 6 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
And how does it pay? Does it not pay very well?
it's changed a little bit since I've left. They've had some raises, but when I left, it was a GS4. I was not in leadership, and I was making, I think, $13.88 an hour.
Okay.
And you sign a contract on day one saying what kind of funeral you want. You want a federal funeral or a civilian funeral? And if you're told you're not comfortable signing that contract, get out of the room. It's not the job for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what compelled you to do this in the first place?
When I first moved out here, I moved out here for the Montana Conservation Corps. It's an AmeriCorps program. I found out someone would pay you even below the poverty line, which was fine with me at the time. I was 20 years old, to live in the woods and dig trails, and I thought that was so cool. And I did that and absolutely fell in love with it. And then I discovered what the Forest Service really was and fighting fire. It just took me, I think, 2 seasons. It was a lot more, I believe, a lot more competitive at that time. It might still be. I don't know for sure. Um, got my EMT license, got into fire, and just absolutely loved it. I loved everything about it. Nobody does this for the money. Sometimes I joke with my clients about that. I still don't do this for the money. I have a knack of liking things that don't pay well. EMS, fire. I've done volunteer fire, volunteer EMS. Really, it's a labor of love. That's what makes it so fun, is that the people are out there. They're all super, extremely similar, like-minded. And you're doing it just for the love of the people, the love of the land, love of the job. And once in a while, at least for me, by year, I don't know what year that was, it just got tiring. I loved my now husband and dog and home and just wanted to be home and didn't know how to bridge that gap.
Well, that was intelligent of you to make that decision, because I'd imagine some people stay with it too long, or as you said, become salty because they just
Yeah.
get burnt out doing it.
Yeah. I've watched most people that leave fire, in my experience, hate it. There's a lot of hatred because it runs you into the ground, and it has no sympathy.
And when you say fire, I mean, are you speaking just to wildland fire, or are you speaking fire in general?
I think just wildland fire. I looked at becoming a structure fire for years. It's different, it's 48 hours on or 24 hours on.
Yeah.
And then you go home at night. When you're doing 14 days on, and then you have travel time, so 16 to 18 days, and then you get 2 days off. I think federally it's changed to 3 days off now. That extra 24 hours is a really, really big deal. But at that kind of, people think we make a bunch of money. Like, yeah, I worked a whole year in these 6 months, but I remember making friends in the spring, meeting really cool chicks. And be like, oh my God, we should hang out. And I'm like, oh, sweet, I'm leaving for fire. I'll see you in October.
Yeah,
It's just not conducive to a balanced life whatsoever.
And how big of a range were you covering when you were doing it out here?
So when you're on a district, so when I rookied on the Gallatin district and was here for a couple of years, that's just the Gallatin National Forest is our home base, but you're a national resource through the summer. So once the summer starts, and especially hot shotting, you're always a national resource. You're not attached to home. So first rolls of the season, usually for people in this region, we're R1 for the Forest Service, and then Region 3 is in the Southwest. We have an exchange. So you always start your season pretty much in Arizona, New Mexico. I've been to California, Canada, and Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, tons in Montana, Idaho. You name it, across the whole West. I've been to West Virginia, Tennessee.
You're covering some ground.
You're covering some ground.
And you guys are always driving.
Mostly, we did fly to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, we flew to Canada and got in chase trucks, just like pickup trucks. But usually we're always in the buggies driving everywhere.
I'm sure you have so many, but what's the best story you have of all your years of doing this?
Oh gosh, you want?
And I don't know what a best story is. What was the scariest thing? What was the most exciting? What's the most memorable?
I'll dabble a few. Tell me which one you're interested in. Colorado, the 316 fire in Durango, Colorado changed. That would be, I would say, be the most applicable. It's not exciting or funny or cool. That's the one I think I'd want to share though, if it's of interest. It's that fire. There's a lot more laws and legislation in Colorado, which I have mixed feelings about, on legislation. But the neat thing about it is their insurance is required to still provide insurance if people do things, as far as I understand. I don't want to misspeak on that, but it was our experience in Durango, everywhere that we were fighting fire, where fire camp was. And fire camp is basically like a mini city gets built. And that was what happened on this one. It was a big incident. A mini city got built at this elementary school where there's showers, there's food, there's tools, like everything a city, like a crew could need. Anyways, everybody there, almost everybody had done mitigation work before this fire ever started. And for one of the first times in my fire career, instead of going in and just deciding, well, these homes are going to stay, these ones are going to go, And then doing the best we can. It was like, wow, all these homes can probably stay. We have a few shifts we're going to go in, and we went and cut line, dug line, and then burned off. I remember in one day we probably secured 2 miles of HOAs and homes and neighborhoods that they'd already done the work. We were actually able to get a foothold. They bought us the time we needed. And I've pretty much modeled my business after that. And I also remember it was the most satisfying feeling I've ever had on a fire. It was like the moral. I've heard not a lot of people, but I've heard people say, "Oh, look, the firefighters will come." They will, but their mental health. I speak a lot about mental health too. To actually get a win that 2 weeks on that fire and to save that many homes is not something we get to experience a lot. It's usually we come in and it's devastating. Like, okay, those homes have had nothing done in decades. We probably can't even get a foothold. By the time we get a foothold, the fire is going to already be here. We have to triage the ones that where we can get something in, or still, if none of them have done anything, we have to go far enough out where we have the time to get a foothold. And then just we sacrifice everything in the middle, and that's not a good feeling. No human being likes to deal with that. So for us, that was huge. We got to do something. We got to be a part of actually saving a community and miles of homes. And the other side of it was the homeowners. You could almost tell, like a lot of them had probably DIY'd it. They were so grateful, more grateful than I've ever seen homeowners been. And I feel like I didn't get a chance to ask them, but kids were handing out candy and like homemade drawings. And there was every single block, people were just standing outside when we drove by, like waving signs, holding signs. And to me, it was they'd already done the work. They knew what we were doing. They knew how much work this took to do it together, to be community minded. And that is my favorite story of my time in Wildfire. There's definitely some really scary, really traumatic ones.
And what made it possible to save this many homes? Was it a situational thing to how much time you had in preparation, but was there something more specific to Colorado that and the legislation there that you were speaking of that made this different than other situations?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. The thing I think that made the big difference is, as far as we were told and briefed and understood, is that almost all of these homeowners had to do some of this mitigation work to receive insurance. So they all had insurance, they'd all done this work, and we were able to go in, except for one of the first and only times I can remember in my years in fire, and be like, oh my gosh, they've already done so much of this. It's maybe been 2 years since someone's touched this. We just need to go cut a few more trees, trim a few more branches, and dig line and just start burning. Where most of the times you show up and you're like, oh, this is going to be 3 shifts for 3 crews. And the fire is going to be here in 2 days. We don't have time. Go further. And that's sad. That's hard to deal with.
So it is what they had done prior pre- as preventative maintenance that let
Yep,
you guys come in and do what you needed to do, and then you could save.
exactly. We could maybe go down miles of homes in 3 shifts with 3 crews instead of like, well, it's going to take 3 shifts to work on these 3 homes.
Could they quantify how just financially what that saved? If you're saying miles of homes, like is it in the billions? It seems like
It
it's
had
almost
to have
got to
been.
be.
These
Yeah.
weren't, I will also just say these were nice homes.
Yeah.
Like we were typically what we find in the wildland urban interface, where people have the money to buy the forested land and build the home like that. They were typically getting homes into the millions. And yeah, so the more, that's another big thing that's never talked about publicly. The more home, the more value that home is worth, the more pressure that's put on someone on the ground. If it's a $500,000 home, we're doing our, I don't know if this should be said out loud, but if it's a multi-million-dollar home, the team is barking down you, like you do whatever it takes to deal with that. And you're like, well, it's unsafe, we need to go. And it's kind of like, well,
And where is that pressure coming from? Like who's determining this is a much more expensive home? Why is there that like difference in that? Hi folks, quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show.
it's kind of unspoken, but
Okay.
it's the team at a higher level. And I believe, I would guess, I never got to the level to make those kind of decisions, but if I had to guess, it's the amount of things that goes on the paper too at the end of the day, how much it costs to fight each fire and how much devastation was lost. It's those devastation numbers that really seem to drive insurance carriers and legislation. And I don't know if it's the high numbers or the low numbers that does better in the effect, but I can just say from the ground, it's very felt the higher end, the area we are in.
Yeah, this makes sense. And yeah, that's it. I mean, if you think of the insurance, it's a, it's $1 billion industry. The amount of,
Yeah.
you would think this is being total idealist, but you think you save miles of homes. Where's the bonus bump for all the firefighters? Because you, like that's a huge number that you're trading off when you save, thousands of homes
Yeah.
at, million or sub $1 million.
Yeah.
You were talking about, you said you're an advocate for mental health.
Yeah.
Like, what can you say to that? And what were you speaking of when you were saying that?
A lot of times, I don't think it'll surprise many people, but if you look at wildland fire,
I'll have you pull that in a little close.
it's one of the most dangerous industries. It's also one of the highest in suicide, things like that. I've not met many wildland firefighters who haven't struggled with mental health at some point in their career. I mean, part of it's being away from either your support system all summer. And then for most of us, it has a double-edged sword of we find a new support system in the crew. I mean, my guys and gals, it was the 22 of us from April through October. Even just my R&R days, I didn't miss I was like happy to be away from everyone and be alone, but also I'm like, wonder what Brant and Megan are doing. And then all of a sudden you're just ripped out of that support system again in October. And for folks who aren't married, don't have significant others, or even if they are, it's just a very different, I still can feel like to this day a difference without, Brant, Megan, and Ty sitting next to me for 2 years, just right there, always, everything we did together. But the mental health too, the thing that I want to talk about that people, can assume those ones but don't take into account a lot is it's actually pretty taxing to spend 6 months watching homes go up or not go up. A lot of times we're not in the position where we're watching them burn. We're coming in later, but that fire just keeps moving and it keeps pretty active. They try to keep us out of that kind of, I would say, I'm going to call it trauma a lot. Maybe a lot of people wouldn't call it that, but watching home burns down, driving through neighborhoods of just leveled homes or leveled cities. Gatlinburg, Tennessee was very eye-opening for me to watch that just be leveled and stop at a stop sign. Like, why are we even like that does not get talked about, the amount of damage that goes into that, the amount of sacrifice that goes into that, the will to be gone from your friends, your parents, your family for literally 6 months, be home for 8 months, and then see all of this while you're at it. Not a lot of people really talk about it, and I think it doesn't fit the culture either. There's a lot of ego in fire, a lot of machismo. So it's becoming, mental health in this country is becoming more pertinent to talk about, but especially in that world, people don't talk about that. I was one of the very few people that talked about it, and I kept my voice very quiet. I kept it to a small circle of people who are comfortable talking about it, but it's there every day, every shift. I mean, when you're not sleeping well, you're sleeping 5 hours a night for 16 days. I'm just going to go there on just decision-making fatigue. And that's, again, a big part of my buying firefighters' time is they're on day, 13, 14. They're max, they're spent. They're human beings. 14 days of digging with no family, nothing around you, running a saw, hot weather, watching things burn down, like be unsafe. It's a lot on a human.
Yeah. I can think just first to the camaraderie that you build.
Yeah.
And I know this is a lot of PTSD with militaries. You have a family.
Yeah.
And you're in this struggle and you're working so hard together. And I think of this, I think of my personal experience with this, and this pales in comparison, but it was the first time I could even in a sense understand what it must be like. And so I guess it was about 6 years ago, I started training at an MMA gym here.
Oh, cool.
And I would literally go every day. Like I was like unhealthily addicted, but the camaraderie that I built with those guys and and we're all working hard. It's hard workouts. We're all like essentially playing this game of how we're fighting for our lives with each other.
Yeah.
But it became family.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, man, we're all a bunch of misfits here. Like we're all probably here because we've got something wrong with us, some kind of, who even knows what. But there was that strong connection. And then I just thought, man, I can't imagine just having that ripped away. And then you take it out into a real world situation like fire and military, and it's the exact same thing. And like you said, then you're just, okay, you're off, your season's over, go figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can only imagine that because mine is a much less dramatic situation. But even then, I'd think like that sucks. That's like, I've got so many people that I'll be lifelong friends with now because of
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Same. Yeah.
So, and that's just to that, I think the first part you spoke to, and then the trauma of seeing this, just seeing
Yeah.
loss of people's homes and their livelihoods. I could only imagine that takes a toll.
It takes a toll.
And yeah, I think like you said too, I'm sure it's just part of the, is grit your teeth and keep going because we got work to do. We don't have time to talk about this.
Yeah.
But I think it is becoming more normal, just mental health awareness these days. So that's cool that you're,
I'm so happy it is.
yeah. So back to that Colorado experience, that I'd imagine like what you're saying is that was probably so much more healthier for you and your crew to be
Yeah.
able to be like, look at it, to see what you did and what you could save because of,
It was phenomenal. I left that fire with a different feeling than I've probably ever left with. And
Yeah.
it stayed with me. And after the Bridger fire, it's funny, those two fires just kept sticking right in my head. And so my husband said, why don't you just start a company doing what you were doing and talk about what you just keep talking to me about every day? It was probably a way for him to just stop hearing me go on about this every single day. Like, oh man, people just don't know what they don't know. And that was so cool about Durango. People did know. And I start every day with that. I don't know what I don't know. I think most people do. Most of my clients do. And we just talk about that. And we talk about the intersection of, the wildland urban interface with good forestry and then these firefighters who are out there and if they'll come or if they'll not come and what time of year it is. And we're all just learning.
Yeah, I think that was the best example, although I might like pry you for another story of a different one, but how that became why you started your business and
Yeah.
the fact that you saw that and you're like, let me go put my money where my mouth is
Yeah.
and my effort and everything else, because that's very cool that you're now doing something you could essentially be, paving the way for that for some firefighters down the road to experience that exact same situation
I hope so.
of like somebody put the time in and people spent the money and they had the foresight to see. When you look at this, how broadly do you offer your services? You're based here in Bozeman.
Yeah, we're based here. We predominantly mostly we're predominantly in Big Sky in the Bridgers. We've ventured out a little bit. I would love to venture out a lot further. Just still trying to get kind of the message out, word of mouth, what we're doing. People don't know to look for us yet. They don't know it, and that's part of that. Don't know what they don't know. They don't know that wildfire prevention and mitigation is something that can be proactive, not just something that happens when the fire starts.
When you look at, let's say, Gallatin County, Big Sky area, the Bridgers, with your knowledge and experience, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerning is it?
Um,
Not to like,
no, yeah,
not to be freaking everyone out, but just because I look at it objectively with, little to no, with no experience in fire and think like it's kind of terrifying. There's a lot of, everything surrounded by trees.
yeah, Big Sky definitely makes me pucker more than Bozeman. But both of them, it's been really cool since year one and now we're on year 5 to just see where people are starting to connect things. There is so much more community centered things around this. Maybe it was just, we kind of all live in our own little world. Maybe my first couple years, it was just me in my own little world, not realizing that other people are having the conversation. But since like year 2, the county grant has started. Big Sky Snow has made a real effort in to start educating communities. The Big Sky Fire Department has since made a fuel crew. The county's made a fuels crew. There's been so many things done over the last 5 years. It's really cool. I see the message and the branding a lot more, on socials, on Google's. So it's really cool to just see that come in more. But there's the risk, and specifically in Big Sky. I mean, there's the canyon, there's West Yellowstone, and then there's Jack Creek.
Yeah.
And if there's a car accident on one of those, that's what really scares me. That's one of the things that happened in Gatlinburg, where it wasn't a huge, terrible fire. But I mean, there's one way in, one way out of Gatlinburg. That it was a big fire in the Smoky Park National Forest there, Smoky Park. Yeah, the national park. One car accident shut down the whole road system. And that's what really scares me in Big Sky, is just our access and how overgrown Big Sky really is, and how little most of our major developers, I'm trying to think of the right way to word that, how little is being done right now, but every year it's growing. We're starting to realize the value of doing this work while we build. Preventative work is always a lot more expensive than first time. So that's one of the things we've been trying to do. In an ideal world, we'll work ourselves out of a job. I mean, that's literally the best case scenario, is that Firebreak shuts down because everybody's done all the mitigation work we can possibly do. I don't foresee that happening, but that would be great. But that, if we were to be shut down on that level, then our risk would go down a lot. But yeah, Big Sky, like we said, Bozeman, the entire thing's in the WUI. Big Sky is,
What is that term?
sorry, the wildland urban interface.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I got to work on my acronyms. I've gotten a lot better since the Forest Service, but I still find I use acronyms all the time. Yeah, where the town meets the forest is the WUI, and all of Big Sky and Bozeman are in it.
Do you ever use that term for different reasons? The wooey, where the town meets the woodlands.
I don't know.
I feel like it could be used comically, but
I think you could.
Okay.
I need to work on my comedic skills.
Like I'll see if I can fit it in anywhere in my future.
I would love help with that.
How about, I know I asked you earlier about, because I think I just saw an ad somewhere of sprinkler systems that were on the exterior of houses.
You probably did.
Do you foresee a future when you get into that, or do you have an interest in getting into that kind of stuff?
I do. We actually, Alpine Property Management is doing a really great job. You probably saw the big board heading up to Big Sky. They're pitching hard frontline wildfire sprinkler systems. Okay. I didn't mean or plan to do a plug for these guys, but they just won. Harry Statters, the company owner, started out in 2001 down in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, logging.
Okay.
Doing wildfire mitigation because beetle kill. I absolutely admire this man. He now just won Times 100 Best Inventions with this. And it is a very, very pricey system, and it will outprice a lot of homes, but it is, I'm sure one day they'll get the price down. But right now, to me, it's the future of wildfire mitigation. And it's also, I think, in our future, we're doing everything from that home ignition zone 5 feet and out. I would love to be able to focus on 5 feet and in. We've told a lot of people we never try to turn down work as a general rule of principle as a business, but we will if a homeowner has such a limited budget and that, they want to do these tree things and this. I'm like, hey, you have cedar siding, you have a cedar roof. Like, if this is such a limited amount of money, you need to do that first. The structure is the number one thing that takes the assault, and everything else supports that work. So exterior sprinkler systems, they're phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about them, and I hope we do start installing them down the road at some point to kind of do a full suite package of the wildland urban interface.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot, as you were saying, they could outprice the home. There's a lot to think about with temperatures and water freezing, and there's so many dynamics to that.
Yep, and Frontline kind of has that solved for this region, which is great, which is why I kind of trust them over anybody else. I'll send people their way. A lot of the other ones, when we start dealing with water around homes, is super sketch. Yeah. We don't ever want to solve one problem and just make another one. We talk about that a lot with privacy and aesthetics. That's great. Let's do your forest, but if you're going to hate your home, then was this worth it? And it's kind of the same thing. But yeah, Frontline, I think it's a whole package. They've got it figured out for all of that, and it's phenomenal.
I'd imagine, or you would think, there's got to be some insurance savings or incentives to do some of this stuff. And I don't know what the insurance world looks like. I know that's probably a complicated can of worms, with all the fires in California and like all the houses that were lost. And, can people get fire insurance out here? Do they? It's
a real mixed bag. So most people out here still have insurance. It's changing season by season. It is rapidly changing, which is where we kind of come back to that legislation. We need insurance to get through this, but I mean, it's the hard part, right? Insurance. We have had enough clients now that are not getting insurance. We're helping them be part of, basically, they're self-insuring when they get to a point. I know Chubb's one of the big ones up in Big Sky. If you don't have more than one home with them, general rule of thumb is it sounds like they're dropping you. And if they're going to keep you, they have very tight, stringent, California strategies. We need to clear cut all of this, 50 before photos, 50 after. So we've started putting together some insurance packages for folks to help them keep insurance. and doing all this work and meeting their exact specs and talking with the company. But for a lot of our other folks, they're at this point, they're just self-insuring. They're putting in the sprinkler system. We're doing work for them, and that's it. That's what they've got now. And that is, I would say, like literally monthly, that's evolving, specifically in Big Sky. It's starting to hit Bozeman a lot too, but it seems like they all kind of started there in the state, and they're spreading out from that now.
I feel like no one's going to get any sympathy for not having multiple homes. But it's like, that sucks.
Yeah.
I have the same thing with the transportation companies. There's carriers that they will only take you on if you have a certain amount of vehicles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's a, it's how business works, but you'll pay the most if you have the least. I'm like, that's just how it goes, which sucks.
Yeah.
But if you get a certain volume, then here's a huge discount. So
yeah, there is a new insurance company, newer, I say it in air quotes, Rose Risk Rock. I shouldn't say it on air because I don't know it for sure, but it's Rock Rose Risk Group or something. And they're living my dream. They're saying, hey, if you work with one of our providers or you do this work, we'll give you insurance. You just got to do the work. Just do the mitigation work. No, we're never going to be able to guarantee this. Fire is a natural disaster. We cannot guarantee it, but their premise is basically, hey, if you live in a hurricane zone, build your house to hurricane specs. You live in a tornado zone, tornado specs. In a fire zone, fire spec. We can only do so much with a natural disaster. So I love the risk they're taking though, and the confident step they're taking in reducing risk for clients. And I think it's cool. I think they're doing the model that I hope gets more widespread.
Yeah, you would hope, for a business like yours, but like how it's just intelligent, not like, well, let's just give us a bunch of money, and if your house burns down, we'll pay for a new one. Like, let's all just be a little bit more intelligent and learn from our past mistakes and create a better future.
And that's where I don't know how to talk about my idea of insurance companies coming in. I don't have the education on that, but that's where the legislation is like, there's got to be a middle ground here. Because we need insurance companies. We can't not have them, but they can't also like implode from one bad wildfire season. There's got to be a good mix here. And just to me, again, it just comes right back to education. Just don't know what we don't know, and getting everybody on that plane just seems like that's where work gets done, when everyone starts getting aligned on the same team, or at least aware is the first step before aligned, I guess.
And you would think and hope with the amount of wealth isolated in Big Sky that could be leveraged to maybe change some legislation and get more education out there and use that amount of wealth to really spread the message. And if positive change can start there, then spread out to the whole state from there. But you would hope, and you would think the incentive is high there because there's so much money in real estate there.
Yeah, you would think and you would hope. I think it comes back to, and I'm sorry, I'm a broken record. It's we have found in chatting with most people that becoming attached to place, I think you can buy a home and it can just be that, especially if somebody has multiple homes. It's just a home. It's just the forest home. But having that conversation, like for all of us, we all seem to be more attached to an idea when we can make a personal connection to it, an attachment. We have really found talking about place and moving to Big Sky Country and being a part of this place. We welcome strangers. We welcome outsiders from anywhere, at least in my perspective. I originally moved here from Michigan in 2012. Had family here, but I never left. I fell in love, and I think that happens for a lot of folks. But I've really stressed upon people a really neat way to be a part of this place and be present here is to take care of the land you've purchased. If you have the money to buy this piece of land that backs up to a neighbor or to a national forest or to a club or an HOA, I don't try to pitch that you have the responsibility. It's more like you have the privilege. You had the privilege to buy this. You have the privilege to do something. And now I'm going to help try to spread the awareness. And then you, more than most people, have the privilege to help wildland firefighters and first responders make less of a mess here, be safer, have more time. And that really seems to hit for a lot of folks, to really just be a part of the community. This to me is a huge community driver. When if we're all investing our time and our money into this place, then let's do it in a way that everybody can thrive here, and your land will thrive more. I kind of joke with people, but if a wildland firefighter can ride out a fire here and be safe, your home's probably going to live too.
Yeah.
And I kind of mean it as a joke, but it tends to hit pretty well.
You would think, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but a lot of people would take a lot of honor in that. Like, hey, I'm coming to this
Yeah.
state. I'm a new community member. I've been welcomed with open arms, and I'm gonna contribute something here, and I'm gonna have a positive impact on this place because this place obviously had a positive impact on me because look how beautiful it is, and look how at home I feel here.
Yeah, we've noticed that time and time again. People, I think there's a stigma here that people just want to move here and change things. And really, people just want to move here and be themselves and figure out how to interact in a place that they're new to. And when a lot of people are just telling you, you know, you don't belong or this, you're changing this, like, and not that that's a bad, you know, I don't want to get into that, but I think we have found a really cool way to welcome people and saying, "Hey, thanks for being here." And then since you're here, if you really want to be a part of place, here's how we suggest plugging in, like both emotionally, physically, you know, and connecting to the land in this way. And people usually love that. It's just kind of reframing what's already there, and it's not exaggerating or lying about anything. It's just saying, "Hey, like you really do have this really cool opportunity," and a lot of people are like, "I didn't even know." I had no idea. I thought firefighters just showed up. I didn't know we were supposed to do anything. And it's like, yeah, we get this cool chance to do all this. And people usually have a big buy-in.
Yeah, I think that's cool, and I think it's great this work that you're doing, and that the more the word can be spread, I think there's a lot more people that would be a lot more apt to help and contribute just with the information and the knowledge
Yeah.
of what's actually going on here.
It's neat to be able to do something, especially like you said, when you move somewhere, you love a place. It's neat to be able to give back to that place, especially when you feel empowered and it's not just sending a check somewhere. I mean, it's your land, it's your place. You're seeing the outcomes, the results, and then knowing, you know, it's safer for you, your neighbors, your HOA, and then your greater community that you'll never meet. It's really, to me, really neat to be able to plug in on all those levels through this act on your own property.
And I think that could have a huge downstream effect of if you know you do it local in your neighborhood, but it starts to catch on in the whole state, and then the whole state starts being more preventative, and then you've had a massive positive impact.
Oh
And
my gosh. Tell me
regardless
about
of
my pipe dream.
regardless of where you came from,
Yeah.
and it was really interesting not even to go down this rabbit hole, but a guest I had on a little while back, Patton, he does Montana Festival here.
Oh,
He
cool.
was saying that this is an interesting thing, and I don't know how dialed this stat is, but the people that are most concerned about growth in community when we talk about people moving is the people that have been here around 7 years. It's not the people that have been there their whole life,
It's
and
interesting.
it's just very interesting to think about because it's kind of ironic. It's like, hey, you were new here not too long ago, but I don't know where that number comes from, but I found that stat very interesting. But I do think that there's a lot of times when people might come here with a lot of money or start a company here and they can do so much good and bring so much value here. And if that can spread across the whole state, like that's awesome.
Right?
So
Just
it's
we're all
easy to
winning.
dog on them and complain about, you know, the wealth, but there's money can do a lot of great things when it's directed properly.
Yeah.
Can I bug you for one more story from your fire career?
I love it.
What do you
Yeah.
got?
Okay. I'll give you my most traumatic one,
Okay.
my scary one. That was probably the steepest fire I've ever hiked on. We were in the Salmon River Breaks outside of Riggins, Idaho.
How many years ago was this?
This one would have been 2019.
I was gonna say I felt like I remember salmon fires. I feel like it was
They get fires all the time.
yeah
Big
yeah because I was gonna
fires.
say I've really only been in the area since 2019. I feel like it was later.
Yeah, the Salmon River Breaks is gnarly steep country. I think that was, I mean, I remember hiking, we are hiking onto this knife ridge where this incident ended up happening. And I remember every couple steps forward, my feet would literally slide backwards. And that Brant guy I've already mentioned, I gotta send this to him. He sat next to me on the buggy, still one of my close friends to this day. But he would just put his hand underneath my fire shelter. We all hiked in a line. He was hiking right behind me, and when I'd start to slide, he'd just boost me up a little bit. And that's not the point of my story, but just I'm
Shout out to Brant.
shout out to Brant and just how steep this country really is. Like this is rugged country. So we're spiked out. We're camping up there. We hiked most of our gear in. We flew in the other bit of our gear, and it's called the Rattlesnake Fire. That's what it was. Anyways, we were prepping to do night ops with another shot crew. Low shots were on the other end with another. There was 4 of us shot crews spread out on this line, not in contact. The line's probably about 2 miles long. They're spiked out at one camp. We're spiked out at the other. We start this night shift, so that means we're spread out. There's a set amount of burners, and then there's kind of like our ops, our crews holding, and then our crew was the burning crew, so about 4 or 5 lighters. So these people are holding drip torches, putting fire on the ground. And the idea is we're putting fire on the ground before it gets here, and fire kind of sucks itself together with oxygen, the fire triangle. So the idea is as we burn these strips, it's sucking itself back to the main fire. And essentially, we're trying to hold and secure an area. We call it kind of black lining, and we're trying to secure the whole area off. So we're doing this. I think we got started around 9 o'clock that night. We're burning. It's maybe 1 in the morning now. Everything's been going really well, but winds are starting to change. Things are starting to not go as well. There's a spot fire that happens, which means the wind, as the wind was kind of running around, the rest of us that aren't burning are actually, instead of watching the fire, we're watching what's called the green. And so we're looking behind us to see if any embers are coming behind us. We'd never want fire behind us. Anyways, try to wrap it up. 1 a.m., we get a spot fire. It goes kind of decent size. The other crew is plugged in on it. They're cutting saw line, and then they're digging hand line to try to contain that spot so it doesn't creep into this other one. And right around when this is happening, they've almost got it wrapped. We have stopped ignitions until this gets wrapped. Comes on the call that burning limbs dropped off, and it's hit their Sawyer team. And we've got a red medical and a yellow medical and a green medical. It's hit 3 people. The red and yellow are not really good to walk out. They need a helicopter. They need to get flighted out of here. So pretty much at that point, when we have a medical on scene, everything shuts down. We go to this other crew. We start transporting them. At this time, that fire that we've just now left is starting to get out of control behind us. We're watching it, but there's really nothing we can do about it. We just kind of have to focus on these 2 guys. We don't want to lose people on the hill. Humans are always more important than trees. So by the time we get them down to a flight zone, the fire has now eaten 3 miles of our hose lay. We're trapped on a knife ridge. We have 2 patients and stretchers. We have about 45 of us humans. We called in a paramedic and an EMT that hiked up from another camp. Their escape route's now closed off. It's all burned over. There's no hose, and there's no going back. We're pretty much on this ridge. And we gathered all the hose we could. We had our EMTs. I'm an EMT as well, but I was still working. I wasn't one of the ones assigned to these patients. They were taking care of the patients. We had called a helicopter to come get them out. They'd turned it down. We did not. I think we had 2 helicopters refuse the assignment, including the Air Force. 2 Bear Air out of Kalispell finally agreed to come do the mission, but they're in Kalispell. We're in Riggins, Idaho, so they've got quite a long flight path. I'm trying to think. It was around, kind of makes me shake a little, 2 or 3 in the morning,
I was
maybe.
gonna say, because you said like 11 when this started, so
Yeah, I'm trying to. If this timeline's not exactly accurate, if someone were to look up, I don't think anyone will, but it's pretty close. The 2 crews, we're now huddled together. We've found every last bit of hose we can find that hasn't been consumed by this fire. And we're on this literally dirt knife ridge knob. And we're like, dirt usually can't burn around us, but I had never had instructions like this. The instructions were to get every piece of hose. We surrounded both crews in a hose lay. And we had just 1 pumpkin of fire, which means we had about 3, if I recall. I think that pumpkin was 300 to 500 gallons of water. And that's it. And this fire, I'm not kidding, was a 90-foot wall. I've never seen anything like it to this day. And it was not, I mean, your face was hot and we were hundreds of feet away from it. And I just remember seeing the silhouettes of our crew bosses just walking back and forth, just trying to patrol that line. And at one point, we were under some trees and there was fire in the treetops above us. And it was kind of burning us, dropping down on us, dropping down on the patients. And we called it on the radio. We're like, hey, we need to put this fire out. We fire up the pump. And there's just the longest silence. Maybe it was just 2 seconds, but it felt like the longest silence I've ever heard on the radio. And then our crew boss said, no, we don't know what's going to happen here. And we can't use that water. We've got 45 people. We're not in a real safety zone. Deal with it. That's not going to kill us. Deal with it. Get burned. And that was new to me. I'd never heard anything like that. I'd never felt anything like that. And I remember we all just huddled together. Our crew was the only crew out of the 2 with our 14-day bags, which means we actually had sleeping blankets or sleeping gear with us and clothes. So we huddled up with that other shot crew. They had no gear. We tried to keep our patients warm. We all kind of like double sleeping bagged and just huddled. And yeah, it ended up being totally fine, but that was probably the scariest night of my life. I heard people on my crew, guys starting to cry, and sorry it's
Oh, you're
true.
okay. Yeah.
I just never, I was fine, I think, until I heard my guys start crying a little bit, and then I got spooked. I was a 4-year firefighter at that point, I think, and 5-year, and people on the crew 10, 12 years. We also were a no cell phone crew. And I remember that was the last time I ever followed that rule because I remember sitting there, we had full cell service, and just like, I can't even text Brad. Um, and the reason we had a no cell phone rule was they just didn't want us out taking photos, which incidentally is how that medical happened. The crew stopped that other crew to take a quick
Oh,
photo,
really?
and a burning limb fell on both of them. And but yeah, I always had my cell phone on me from there on out, and I didn't use it for photos, but I knew if I was ever in that situation again, I was not going to be not able to say goodbye.
Damn. Well, thank you for sharing that story. Sorry to like, take
No,
you back
sorry.
to it.
No, it's good. It's actually good. It's in Wildfire Lessons Learned. There incidentally was another medical on the other side. We lost that whole fire. Lolo's other crew also had a medical. That fire was kind of it's actually a joke. It was a curse fire. There's a medical, and we got down. A guy had a heart attack right when we got down. I mean, that fire was just, it was hopefully going to get wrapped up that night. I think it went for 2 more months, and it burned another 100,000 acres.
And how did the rest of that night, go? Like at one point, are you like, because like, how do you even sleep? And then when are you like, I'm gonna get out of here? Because I'm like, there's a point where you're thinking like,
Right.
this could be it.
I
We're
think I think we all fell asleep around like 3, 4, 5 a.m. We all just huddled together again. A couple of us in full boots and greens, just a bag over on the ground. I remember I woke up early, not on purpose. Just I happened to be one of the first people up. I had to go to the bathroom really bad,
Mhm.
and it was great. Our crew boss was starting to just like gently kick people's boots and get us all back up around 7. I think that was around 6:15. We got a couple hours of sleep, and then Two Bear Air landed, I think, around 7 a.m., and we loaded our patients and got them out. All the 2 main ones were flown off first, and they were taken to the hospital, and the 3rd green one was flown off. And then slowly the rest of the crew got packed up. Our Knife Ridge lived. It was that little Hoseley we had. We didn't end up having to put anything out. It could have gone so much worse, but they ended up putting us in a church for the next night. It was, I mean, just like a building. It could have been a school building, but we
Mhm.
ended up sleeping the night and just inside. They took a night off. We all went out. They said, go have a beer, go get a burger. And we all just had beers down by the river and talked and got back at it to it.
That's crazy. That's like a life-changing event, I'm imagining.
Yeah, it was. I'm surprised I teared up here. Usually I
Mhm.
think I've been pretty good about it for years, but I couldn't tell that story for months without and nothing bad happened. It was just, I didn't know. And I think that was
Yeah.
the spookiest part.
No, that's terrifying. You're like surrounded by fire.
Yeah. So 10 of us just sitting on a log, just huddled together, and people crying, and just, there's 4, we had 4 women on our crew, which is one of the most stacked women crews ever.
Yeah.
And just like, yeah, when I hear guys cry, it just, it gets me going.
It makes it that much more beautiful what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Because like to live through an experience like that and then to think like, what can I do? What can I take from this experience and go, prevent, hopefully no one has to be in that situation again. Like that's your ultimate dream is like, let's do as much as we can to mitigate having these things happen again.
Yeah. And yeah. Fortunately, we didn't have to deploy fire shelters. I didn't know if we would, but we only deployed 2 shelters, and it was for our patients to just keep them from getting fire rained on them while they were bloody and super cut. They were super burned and pretty bad burned. So, but yeah, it could have been a whole lot worse, but I'm glad it wasn't. And yeah, it's wildland firefighters go through a lot that we don't ever really consider or think about, and it's kind of my back end ploy of mental health. Is like, why are we doing this to them for this low of pay, to have no support system? As soon as they're laid off, they don't even have insurance to get them through the winter, to seek mental health resources. It's like anything I can do to buy them time and to protect wildland firefighters, it'll be a love and a passion that never really leaves.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's different in the future because there's too many jobs like that just don't pay anything and they're so imperative.
Yeah.
Like all first responders, teachers, all that stuff. It's
Right,
like,
teachers.
why do we have just why I don't know why, but I'm so appreciative of someone like you who is like you are literally putting your money where your mouth is from your own personal experience and like this is what I can do.
Yeah.
This is, you're not just sitting here complaining about it because we could do that for a while and it sucks, but you're doing something and that's so cool to hear you tell that story and then see what you're doing. Is
Yeah.
just thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. You're also running a business. How how is that going for you?
The business is going great. Yeah, years 1 and 2 were pretty slow. Years 3 and 4, we finally started learning. I was just a wildland firefighter. I read books and listened to podcasts and Audible as much as I could in the buggy as we drove back and forth between Arizona and Montana and Colorado. But yeah, it's going great. It's year 5. We've really found our niche, our audience, who we're working for, what we're doing. We've learned how to, well, I'm learning how to tell my story. This is another example.
You're doing a great job.
Well, thanks. I'm getting better at it. But yeah, business is going well. We actually just had 2 more new people start today.
Nice. How many on your crew?
So I work in the field in the spring and fall, not as much in the summer. So when I'm working with them and we're running a full crew, it's 5 of us in the field and we've got 2 equipment operators now.
What has owning a business taught you? How's that journey been for you?
It has been so much humility, so much learning. It just never ends. I love it. I didn't know I could learn this much this fast. And that's been the biggest gift. And really being able to hone this message a lot more in my leadership skills. That's changed a lot. I turned down a lot of leadership stuff in fire because I knew it wasn't a lifelong thing for me. And it's really hard to come by those training opportunities. So I thought I was doing my fellow firefighters a favor. It's the only thing I regret now. I wish I would have been greedy and said yes, because it's exactly what I needed now. But the crew has, through hard knocks and their own intuitiveness and helpfulness, helped me become the leader I need to become. And that's been fun. It's been a fun journey.
I was going to ask if you saw those parallels, with the leadership, in fire now with your business, because I see it in everything in life, in nature, in my business, in family, in everything. You see the parallels of leadership, and you can learn a lot if you want to learn and you see it, and you learn it one way or another.
Yep. It helps that the crew culture as a whole is obsessed with learning. The whole goal is we're always learning. So we do a lot of continuing ed, a lot of things specifically built around that. And I think that just helps the culture of all of us learn, between hard skills and soft skills. Just everything gets better daily, and just through learning to rely on a team. And the people that we hire typically have a wildland fire background, sometimes a logging background, but they're used to team stuff, and it just makes it really fun too. Now that we're getting a bigger crew, it's starting to feel even more like home to me.
I bet you're recreating some of this.
I know. I'm recreating my dream world.
Yeah, all this camaraderie of the crew and everything, and in a different way. And it's very cool that you're kind of getting on the other side of the fire, ahead of the fire.
It's been fun. It's been cool, kind of teaching that. The employees we've lost now, there's a few, I'm not sure what they're doing, but the few I've stayed in touch with. One has started his own business. One got the fire bug from us, and she now does full-time fire.
Okay.
And the other one went to a full-time logging crew. So it's really cool too. It's bittersweet when people come and go, but it's really cool to be able to take kids and really, or adults, some people are older than me, and blend our message into their ecosystem of thinking and their suite of skills, and have them bring it to other places too. And really, there's no competition. There's no scarcity. I've had homeowners try to pit me against the Forest Service, and I'm like, dude, we're all on the same team. We're all coming about it from a different way, trying to buy time for wildland firefighters and save our forest.
Yeah. And save lives in people's homes.
Yeah.
And
we're all doing it. Whether you DIY it, you hire us, or you hire another company, thank you for fulfilling our mission and vision. We appreciate you. And as far as we're concerned, you're part of this invisible club that is in my head, that lives, that if you've worked with us or you've even talked to us, thank you for being a part of the club that's wanting to help people and change this, and really change how we interact with wildland fire, because that's what's slowly happening right now in the West.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in the Northeast, and it's not something you think about as much there.
No, nor in Michigan either.
Until there's like the smoke haze.
Right.
And then you hear, there's fires in the West, or there's fires in Canada, but it's a different world out here in that sense.
Yeah. And that's something new. I got to watch myself. I know I am my short-term goal, is to change how we interact with wildland fire in the West, and then long-term it's the US, and then it's at a global scale, is, just adjust this messaging.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not where I grew up. It's not common for it to be so dry in the end of the
Yeah.
summer and the fall. And it's almost weird. I'm more used to it now, but it's like July, August hit and everything turns brown. And it, for the most part, like keeps raining in the Northeast,
Yeah.
through the summer and the fall. And it's like just a different world.
It's just changing. Yeah, we could spend a whole other time on that weather system off the coast of
Yeah.
Alaska that gets us to that, but
I know you mentioned some of your employees might have had a fire background or a forestry or logging background.
yeah.
Is there like any definite yeses or nos when you hire people? Is there people that like there's obviously some experience they need to have? Like,
Yeah.
what's your ideal candidate other than kind of what I just said?
Yeah, so as far as right now, we're still looking for folks with kind of at least a year of saw experience. Um, for some people, we've had people come with hot shot backgrounds, with district backgrounds, with private fire backgrounds. One of them came with the logging background, and then we'd have a couple that have come out of the conservation corps. But at some point, everybody has had this foundation of understanding the forest as more than just something we recreate in, and it really depends. I was pretty partial to wildland firefighters in the beginning, but I've learned, just like everything, we had just that straight fire lens. But like I didn't know the first year, and I know now, is that good forestry really is just the tip of the iceberg on wildland fire. So we've really spent it. I mean, we take into account, do you have, like ecology experience? How much do you care about this? Like, even did you spend time in the woods growing up? And right now we're limited to hiring people with about a year of saw experience. But I hope as we expand, we can take on earlier practitioners and their experience and help grow them as well. Just where we are and how we're aligning as a company right now, we need a little bit more depth. We don't quite hire intros, but
Mhm.
I'd hope to at one point. We're all just trying to learn something no matter where we're at. We just haven't had the capacity to be able to bring somebody up brand new yet.
What kind of saws do you guys run?
We're a still family.
Okay. Do you guys how do you feel about electric saws? Are they like they can't exist in it, or do you guys use them?
No, we don't use them. I think they're actually awesome. I
I do
mean,
too.
my head's been turned a couple of times. It's just hard for me to imagine how we'd sustain battery life for a full shift
Yeah.
on that amount of saws, but I'm not anti them. I mean, down the road, I mean, that sounds cool. I mean, really not using that much gasoline and all the two-stroke. There's a
Yeah.
lot to be said about
Yeah,
that.
just not having to mix stuff. It's
Yeah, well, especially working around waterways. We try to use biodegradable stuff around waterways, but it's still like there's just a lot.
There was a guy years ago. He would do so. This was in the Northeast. He built fences, and the government would pay to have these. They were trying to save the painted turtles, which were
Wow.
endangered. So they'd fence off wetlands and then put cattle in them. It was usually highland cattle to manage it, and it would create better habitat for the turtles. And when we would be clearing stuff for the fences, he would use, I don't know if it was I think it was basically like cooking oil for bar oil instead of
Love that.
because it wasn't getting the oil in all the wetlands.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was like, I don't know if it was canola oil or something or corn. Anyway, I was just like, this is very funny.
I
But
love that.
I was just telling someone a few weeks ago, they asked me if I had any bar oil. I'm like, I think you can use like
They
any
say
kind of
you
oil.
can put any oil in there. I
Yeah.
haven't tried it. We've only used the specific biodegradable stuff and then just our regular
Yeah.
oil. And then there is biodegradable two-stroke. I haven't, I've only tried that out once. We're actually looking more into that right now because we're working more, like I said, as these projects expand, we're finding properties with more. I mean, we were just working at the headwaters of Jack Creek, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing to this waterway?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a lot of cutting, but I was like, keep your cuts on land as well. Let's just pull, we winch much more stuff. And yeah, try not to disturb waterways. And talk about good forestry. I mean, one of the cruxes of good forestry is good waterways. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, you're just lubricating the chain. So, I mean, I guess any oil,
Right.
I know that I say that lightly, but anyway, it's a funny concept to think of.
I love it.
Anything else people should know about you, know about business? What is owning a business taught you and being in fire and doing everything? It's like, I could only imagine the lessons you learned from that story you've told, the terrifying story
Yeah.
and the great story. And now you're running a business and you're working in the community. Do you ever like try to take a step back and look at it all and say, what am I learning? What am I doing?
Yeah, all the time, especially in the wintertime. We'd
What's the
work.
down season?
Yeah, we work. I work in the office a lot more in the winter, and we do a lot of systems, a lot of vision planning and growth stuff. Um, just keep on keeping on. And if you're starting a business, one of the things I've learned is the year one version of you would be very different than the year three and the year five, and be really open to that change because it has to be. Your business changes so much, and it will stay the same if you do. And if you're into that, that's cool. But I'm into. There's new science coming out all the time. There's new growth. There's new clients. There's new perspectives. We're learning at a different rate. AI is changing things. It's just I feel like we're always adapting and adjusting to be what our clients need, but also not adapting enough where we don't hold a hard line. We won't do bad forestry. Um, I'll do stuff on the edge for people if it demands it, but we just won't do bad forestry. But um, yeah, just the change is where everything happens. The edge of your comfort zone. Just get uncomfortable a lot and just be uncomfortable and have fun with it. And
I thought it was so interesting. I didn't say it earlier. I didn't want to interrupt your story, but you were saying you essentially will light the line of fire and that will draw in, and
yeah,
it's like the concept of fighting fire with fire
yeah,
is like very interesting because you're technically actually doing that.
yeah. I'm sure it got made from that original. Yeah. It's the same thing like when we light piles, we can try to not burn trees as much as we're depending where we light the pile. There's a lot of little nuances. I forget about that with new employees that don't have the fire background. It's kind of fun.
Hmm.
The amount of things you learn just from being around something and just from straight absorbing time or trigger time. Yeah. And you're putting fire down, it's always moving to itself. The fire triangle, the biggest one. I always envision it like an isosceles triangle. Like oxygen, I think, is like the biggest part of it. If you can shut oxygen down from it, you can smother it, or you add more oxygen to it, and it just rips. And so that's the same where oxygen sucks, fire sucks the oxygen to itself to move. I don't know if I'm doing a very good job at explaining it. So as you make strips, it just keeps pulling to the last fire you had. So you can direct the direction with how it pulls.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, how do you think people can have a healthy relationship with fire? Because as you were explaining earlier, we need the fire.
Yeah.
It's a part of our ecosystem and our forests. It can also devastate an entire city and a community. So,
Yeah.
how do we have that healthy respect and appreciation for it and also not be terrified of it, but also respect it?
So that's a great question. I think as a whole, we're learning, at least again, I can speak for the Western US, learning how to bring the idea of good fire back. I see that term more and more and more. The idea of good fire where it's on the ground, but it's not devastating. We use fire to treat a lot of these things where we're making piles or we're doing broadcast burns and burning acres for ecosystems. I think it's worth respecting and being a little afraid of if you're not a practitioner of fire, if that's not something your skill set lies strongly in. I don't encourage people to DIY that typically. Um, Call somebody. Your local fire department's looking for volunteer hours. We are always looking to burn stuff. Your paid departments can help set you up with resources. The DNRC, the state, the forest, the BLM, Fish and Wildlife, all of these agencies and interdisciplinaries believe in the use of good fire and basically kind of being proactive and seeking help on that or using fire in your own fireplace. We've had clients that has been DIYing it themselves for 4 years and they get their four-wheeler out in a wagon and bring up all the extra fuel that they've been cutting and they just burn it in their little fire pit year over year, and just have little campfires all summer. And um, yeah, I think just as everything we find, I tend to find that I'm afraid of things that I'm not educated on. So just learning about good fire and good forest health. If you're going to live in a home that attaches to the forest and the town, I just implore you to just learn more.
Yeah, I would really love that. You're afraid of things you're uneducated about, so
Yeah, story of my life.
educate yourself.
I'm always afraid of things I don't know.
There's almost too much information out there, but
Oh my
you
gosh.
can definitely educate yourself.
Yeah.
I'm thinking when you see the signs on the interstate, dragging chains, start fires,
Yeah.
sparks, is there anything else you think of from preventative maintenance end of starting fires? I know you listed things around the house, but besides the obvious, like, putting fires out,
Yeah.
cigarettes, any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you hit a big one. A lot of fires do start from chains. It's a little bit older now. We're not seeing this so much, but catalytic converters are still around. They definitely still start fires. Um, yeah, just pulling off. I remember one time pulling off in Big Sky, our shipper brakes were just smoking, and I was about ready to pull off, and I was like, "Oh God, this is smoking. What am I gonna do?" But it was like August in Big Sky. I was like, "Oh God!" And I finally found like a pavement turnoff, and I felt like I was destroying my stuff, but I was like, "Man, it's gonna be destroyed a lot quicker if I start a fire. It burns down." So yeah, be really mindful where you pull off. Smoking cigarettes, little taboo, but joints. They think it was a joint that started the bridge fire.
Oh, interesting.
That's the what I think lightning was put on paper, but that's the widely held.
Yeah.
um, just anything you're smoking. Even you hear campfires dead out. I've worked with people on my crew that have had to train. Throwing water on top of fire does not kill it. You have to stir it.
Yeah.
It dries out the top and it's all wet, and then you dig down like even a half an inch and it's still hot and burning. If you can touch it, it can't burn something. It's a big tip. If you have a fire ever and you can touch the remnants, if your hand can deal with it, it will not start a wildland fire. If your hand cannot deal with it, you are still at risk of starting a fire.
That's a good barometer. So everyone stick your hand in your campfire. If you don't, then
Well, if you're confident enough to walk away from it, I would think you'd be confident enough to stick your hand in it. And if not, then we have a problem there.
I don't know when this will probably air before 4th of July fireworks.
Yes, fireworks are
Yeah.
huge. Gosh, fireworks. People don't put firework bans in because they don't like pretty things in the sky. They're for fire season. They're for was that bear trap? How long ago did that just burn to the ground from a firework a few 4th of Julys ago? Like maybe 12 years ago or so, 10
Oh, I
years
don't know
ago.
about that one, but
Yeah, if you yeah, when you're heading out towards Norris and all that,
oh
that
yeah, yeah.
huge burn scar, that was a 4th of July firework.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I think a lot of people are going to be fine with that anyway, because so many people have dogs here that hate fireworks, so they're going to be like, "Yeah, let's."
Yeah, that's fair.
I heard them. I heard some last night, and I was like, "Oh, people
It's
are."
starting.
This is the pre 2 weekends out of 4th of July.
Right, it is beginning. Yeah. Yeah, just being safe, being mindful, just thinking about, like I don't know, my head is so trained to think like that.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. You're like you're a Navy SEAL, or you're just you're watching the room, but the room is the forest, and you're
the firewood one, my husband got me on that a year ago. He made fun of me. He's like, "Hey, firefighter, come out here." I'd stacked a bunch of firewood under our Traeger. And he's like, "What? This is stupid." So I was like, "All right, you're right. This wasn't the brightest choice I've made this week."
yeah. Well, we're all learning, right?
Yeah, we're all learning.
Think of anyone in Montana or in this community hears this. Is there anything that you, as a business owner, as a former firefighter, and that you need from the community, where they could help you out with or help themselves out with,
Yeah.
other than all the valuable stuff you just shared about
Yeah,
preventative maintenance?
just keep learning and keep having a conversation with it. That's the biggest thing. Homeowners, talk to your neighbors about it. Let it be the start of a conversation. Your home is only as safe, really, as your neighbors. Neighbors are critical in preventing this. The reason we talk about the 100 feet so much as such a big defining point is because that is the end of convection, like radiant heat. If your neighbor's home is on fire, say it's just a structure fire, and your home is, at least in your vegetation, is 100 feet away from that, or 105 feet, your home will likely not start on fire. If your home is within 100 feet, it will be catching. And that's kind of why we try to push the wall of fuel out so far from that 100 feet from the home. So yeah, talk to your neighbors. That's what you can really do to help our company, is just keep having conversations around this topic. It doesn't have to be with our company's name. It can be DIY. It can be another company. But the more proactive and the more educated we all are, the better this is going to be, and the faster this is going to move.
And if everyone could focus on being a better neighbor.
Be a better neighbor.
What a
man.
great community we'll
Oh
have.
my gosh, there's so many wins there.
Yeah. Where can people find you, what you're doing, and find out more about you?
Check us out on our website. It's just firebreakmanagement.com. We've had a beautiful, lovely, amazing website designer redo it for us.
Yeah.
Should we name drop her?
Yeah, do it.
Amy McGann. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, she is unbridled form. I can't thank them enough. They do amazing websites, and they learn not to just capture the website, but I feel like if you visit our website, they've really helped us capture our past, our present, and our future, and just if you want some of these stories to come to life, you can check out our blog. Amy's made that really, really great. And then just our services on our website. Just let you know everything you need to know.
That's where the Mountain Mule website's got the same thing going on. So
That
I
Amy
know
began
I know exactly
crushes
what you're
it.
talking about. You're on social too.
Yep. We're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. My team mostly manages that. I'm not good on social phones.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, cool. Anything else? Anyone else should know about you? I really appreciate you sharing the hard story, the cool story, and
Yeah.
was it Durango?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very cool what you're doing. So I have much respect for it, and
Thanks,
I
bud.
get excited when I get to talk to business owners like this.
Well, thanks for giving me the space and the voice. That we're working on our voice hard and just trying to spread the message that we're all in this together. It's a community-wide thing. This is not an individual thing. It doesn't matter if you're from Bozeman or not. This is, if you're here, you're part of it. So just, I loved your line. We should use somewhere, be a better neighbor.
Yeah, and
That was perfect.
if you hear this, share this with your neighbors, because I'm thinking of so many homeowners in so many different areas already that I think this would be so valuable, and it can start so many conversations. And
that's all it's about. It's education, conversation, and then it starts with DIY. And then if you want to do more, you contact another company to do more.
Yeah, and you call Jess, and she comes and gets you set up, and there's a great downstream effect of somebody being prepared, and the past you that was a firefighter gets to show up and see these people did the work. Now we can do our job, and we can save homes and save lives. And
that one phone call gets you a free estimate. It's like an hour on site, and I will probably talk at you a little too much, have a lot of questions. I'll have a lot of answers, or at least steer you towards the best ones I can find and know. And that's the start of every forest project. It's just an hour conversation, and bring your neighbors, bring your HOA. No one needs to purchase anything. Just get educated.
If a 20-year-old Jess is listening to this right now and she or he wants to go start doing wildland firefighting, what would you say to yourself, or what would you say to them right now?
Keep the stoke alive and be ready to dig in. It's going to be as hard as you think, and probably a lot harder. And just keep going. Yeah, just grind.
Cool. I think we should end right there.
All right.
Thanks, Jess. I appreciate you.
Chip.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links, at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.